I got a really serious question for you. Let me show you. Okay. What kind of dog is this right here? Is this a Doberman? Is it a Doberman? Or a Doberman Pinscher? Are these all actually the same dog? Or are we talking about just completely different types of Dobermans? Because depending on where you are in this world, this dog has a different name. And that name isn't random, it actually tells you something about the dog itself. So let's clear this up, guys, once and for all. Here's something that most people don't realize, and it's actually pretty interesting. What you call this dog depends a lot on where you are in the world. If you're in Europe, especially in Germany where this breed originated, you're almost always going to hear the same name, Doberman with 2 N's, and that's considered the original and technically correct name of this dog. But if you're here in the United States though, what you'll hear almost exclusively is Doberman Pinscher, which is the official name recognized by the American Kennel Club and has just stuck culturally over time. And then there's what most people say casually, which is just Doberman with 1 N. And that's basically become the worldwide shorthand that everybody uses in everyday conversations, regardless of where they are. So right away, we've got 3 different names floating around, all being used to describe what looks like the exact same dog. And naturally, that leads to the question that a lot of people have. Are these actually the same dog, or are we talking about different types of Dobermans? So is it the same dog? Well, now technically speaking, yeah, all 3 of these names are referring to the same breed that was originally developed in Germany in the late 1800s. But where this starts to get a little more interesting is that while they are the same breed on paper, the name that's been used can sometimes hint at something a little deeper going on behind the scenes. Because in real world situations, when someone says Doberman with 2 N's, they're usually referring to what we'd consider the European variety of the Doberman. Bigger, bulkier, darker colored markings, more of a square head and square muzzle. Whereas when someone says Doberman Pinscher, they're almost always talking about American lines, thinner, shorter, lighter colored markings, and more elegant, smoother sloping features. And when someone just says Doberman, it's kind of a catch-all term that could mean either one, depending on the context. So yes, it's the same breed technically, but the name differences can refer to various varieties and reflect how the breed was developed differently depending on where you are in the world. And to really understand why that happened, we've got to go back to where this breed started. The Doberman was created in Germany in the late 1800s by a man named Karl Friedrich Louis Dobermann, yes, with 2 N's. And he wasn't a dog breeder in the traditional sense. He was actually a tax collector who traveled through some pretty dangerous areas carrying large sums of money. But luckily, he was also the town's dog catcher and ran the local pound. So yeah, he had access to a lot of canine genetics, if you know what I mean. So naturally, he wanted a dog that could protect him, something that was strong, loyal, highly intelligent, and of course, capable of handling real world threats. And when this breed was first established, it was named directly after him, Doberman Pinscher, with 2 N's. Now here's the part that surprises a lot of people. That word Pinscher didn't mean what most people think it means today. Now back then, the word Pinscher wasn't referring to a specific breed like we think of now. It was more of a broad category of dogs, similar to how we might use the word terrier. It described what the dog did, and it generally referred to dogs that were known for biting, gripping, and controlling pests or threats, which the Doberman was. So when the breed was originally named Doberman Pinscher, it was a combination of the last name of the person who developed the dog, Mr. Doberman, and what its purpose was, Pinscher. But over time, things started to change. As the Doberman developed and became more refined, more specialized, and just more clearly defined as its own unique breed, that broader category label of Pinscher just really didn't fit anymore. The dog had evolved beyond that original classification, both in structure and in purpose, and it was becoming something much more specific than just a general Pinscher type of dog. So sometime around 1948, Germany made the decision to drop the word Pinscher entirely, and the breed became known simply as the Doberman, keeping the original spelling with the 2 N's, of course. You're welcome, Carl. The UK followed that change shortly after, and over time, most of the world adopted this simpler name for the dog as well. But there was one place that didn't follow that shift. Here in the good old United States, the American Kennel Club kept the original name Doberman Pinscher, and because of that, it just became the standard that people continued using over time. Look at that. I guess America is sticking a little more to the Doberman Pinscher's roots after all. But at the same time, the US did also simplify the spelling by dropping one of the N's from Doberman, which is why we commonly see Doberman with one N instead. Sorry, Karl. So now we've ended up with this really interesting split where Europe sticks with Doberman with two N's and the US sticks with Doberman Pinscher. And the rest of the world kind of uses Doberman with one N as a simplified version of both to, you know, kind of stay out of the fight, I guess. Same breed, but very different naming traditions depending on where you live. But this is where things really start to connect in a way that most people don't expect. You know what's funny about this though, is the people who actually care about this stuff like this, like where the breed came from, why it's named the way it is, and how it developed over time, those are almost always the people who end up doing really, really well with their Dobermans, like being truly successful raising these often difficult dogs. And it's probably you because you watched it this far, and congrats, because this is not a surface level type of dog. This breed responds to detail, they respond to consistency, and what you put into them, literally and figuratively. And yeah, that includes what you're feeding them. That's a big reason why we've partnered with Ollie here at Doberman Planet. Because Ollie's approach is a lot like ours. It's honestly built around owners like you and me, people who are, let's be honest, a little more obsessed than the average person with their dogs. They make fresh human grade meals that are formulated with veterinary nutritionists and are portioned specifically for your dog. So instead of just guessing or grabbing whatever, you know, dried kibble you find, you know, the fast food version of dog food, you actually know what your Doberman is getting every single day, and it's fresh and awesome, and it's top of the line too. Nutrition for these dogs really builds their foundation, and that foundation matters a lot more than many people realize, especially with things like health, with temperament, how pleasant they are to live with on a daily basis, all of it. So if you're already paying attention at this level with these dogs, it just makes sense to match that with how you're fueling them too. You can check out Ollie at our link is dobermanplanet.com/freshfood. And then just use that coupon code DobermanPlanet. It'll get you 60% off that very first box. And I'll leave a link right down below that you can just easily tap on if you're watching this from your phone, or there's a QR code up in the corner that you can scan if you're watching this from a smart TV. And that link will just drop you right in on this deal. Okay, now this is where things really start to connect here. So what's the real difference between these dogs? Well, European Dobermans tend to stay closer to the original working vision of the breed, meaning they're often a bit more robust, a bit more intense, high drive, and more focused on working ability and performance. Whereas American Doberman Pinschers over time were bred with slightly different priorities, often becoming more refined in their appearance and more elegant looking and more focused on companionship, while still maintaining many of their core abilities, of course. It's just not to such an intense degree. So actually the name that someone uses can give you a subtle clue about what version of that breed that you might be looking at. If they say Doberman with two N's, they're probably referring to the European variety. And if they say Doberman Pinscher, it's likely an American variety. And if they say Doberman, well, hey, I mean, they could be referring to any variety of this breed from anywhere. Once you start understanding that connection, you realize that this goes way beyond just spelling or terminology. When you really start digging into the differences between the American and the European Dobermans, you start seeing differences not just in how they look, but major differences in how these dogs actually behave on a daily basis, their unique challenges, and even how they should be trained and handled at home. And that is a much deeper conversation than we can fully get into here, but it's something every Doberman owner should really understand. And I'm curious, what do you call them where you're from? Drop it in the comments down below. And if you want to really understand the differences between American and European Dobermans, and they can be, by the way, very different in many ways, there's a video that's gonna be popping up on your screen in about 2 seconds that breaks that down in a lot of detail, so definitely check it out. See you guys next week when we break down even more fascinating information about this fascinatingly unique breed of dog, the Doberman, or Doberman Pinscher, or Doberman, whatever.